They called themselves the custodians of civilization, an empire so vast its borders touched the birth clouds of new stars and the death throes of ancient ones. For over 10 millennia, the Galactic Empire reigned without challenge, enforcing peace through the quiet threat of annihilation. Every species that rose beyond its cradle was offered the same terms: compliance or extinction. Most chose compliance. A few chose resistance, briefly. All were eventually pacified. The Empire believed this to be the natural order of things: order through dominance, peace through overwhelming force. It had been so long since anyone had proved otherwise that they had forgotten the very possibility of failure. When probes first registered the signals from Sol, it was almost ignored. A yellow star. Third planet oxygen-rich. A surface species had developed primitive radio transmissions and had begun launching crude satellites. Early reports tagged them as carbon-based bipeds with aggressive behavioral patterns, nothing unusual. Yet their development rate was flagged as anomalous. In just a few millennia, they'd evolved from hunter-gatherers to nuclear-capable. Within a few short centuries, they were already sending machines beyond their home world. Still, the Imperial Bureau of Exploration marked Earth as a Category 2 integration prospect, primitive but with potential. Their aggression was noted but considered manageable. Dangerous only to themselves. The first contact was unintentional. An Empire scout frigate, operating on automated protocols, entered the Sol system to gather atmospheric samples and scan for biosignatures. It was intercepted before it could even complete its orbit. Destroyed within seconds by a barrage of high-velocity projectiles, unguided, purely kinetic. No formal greeting. No warning. The signal of its destruction triggered a review. The incident was categorized as a possible pirate attack. Earth species, Homo sapiens, were not considered capable of such precision. A second scout was sent, this time cloaked and with deeper observational protocols. It never returned. The Empire dispatched an observation team, 6 ships, lightly armed, equipped for analysis and diplomatic contact. Their mission: assess the planet's leadership, establish communications, and deliver a standard pre-integration ultimatum. What they found was a planet already watching them. Earth's orbital space was dotted with silent satellites, many of them inert, some decoys, some armed. The fleet made orbital insertion, transmitting a broad-spectrum greeting in over 600 known galactic dialects. They received nothing in return. Then their ships began vanishing, one by one. No energy readings. No battle transmissions. No escape pods. Just silence. One vessel managed to deploy an escape drone before being overtaken. It carried 2 minutes of footage that silenced the council chambers when it was played. The humans didn't use energy weapons or gravity distorters. They fired mass at unimaginable speeds, projectiles traveling faster than any Empire vessel could intercept. They didn't engage in duels or ceremonial battle formations. They swarmed. They overwhelmed. Their ships were blocky, unadorned, seemingly patchworked, but moved with brutal efficiency. They used flares and electronic countermeasures that overloaded Empire sensors. One of the ships, barely the size of a freighter, launched a missile that detonated not with fire, but with an electromagnetic pulse so dense it left 3 Empire ships dead in space before they were torn apart. The drone's final frame showed humans in reinforced suits boarding an Empire cruiser, firing indiscriminately, using tools not designed for battle but for disassembly. They tore through bulkheads with plasma cutters and hull-breaching rounds. There was no communication. No attempt to negotiate. Just cold, surgical violence. In the Imperial archives, the term species-level threat had not been used in over 800 years. That designation was quietly added to the human file that same day. The Council debated the response. Most considered it a fluke, perhaps a misunderstanding. Others warned of retaliatory action. A third fleet was prepared. This time with heavier weaponry, experienced warships, and a diplomatic detachment to manage what was surely a cultural misstep. But the tone had shifted. There was unease. These humans had not only destroyed 2 fleets, they had left no survivors. No messages. No indication that they had even understood what they were destroying. Imperial doctrine dictated that when a species became troublesome, you strike once, visibly, and overwhelmingly. Show them the power of the Empire. Break their infrastructure, eliminate their leadership, and then offer terms. Mercy, in the shadow of absolute power, always worked. Always. And so, the fleet was launched. 20 ships. Carriers, cruisers, planet breakers. Enough to shatter a solar system. Enough to remind the galaxy that resistance was not tolerated. They never arrived. The final transmission came from the fleet's lead vessel, hours before it was due to enter Sol. Static. Then a voice. Human. Male. Calm. We see you. We remember. Then silence. 3 days later, fragments of Empire hull plating began appearing in distant systems, carried by human probes. Some of them bore inscriptions, etched messages in alien and human scripts alike. You came to our world uninvited. This is what follows. You are not gods. The Empire's communications systems were bombarded with encrypted signals from unknown sources, mathematical sequences, coordinates, mockingly referencing historical Empire defeats. Civilian networks were hijacked with brief flashes of human faces, emotionless, staring directly into the camera. No threats. Just presence. Constant, undeniable presence. For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire faced something it didn't understand, an enemy that did not want inclusion, did not ask for diplomacy, and did not react predictably. A species that treated war not as a ritual or as a tool of negotiation, but as a language. A language they spoke fluently. And the galaxy was listening. The Empire had never mobilized such force for a single species. The new fleet consisted of 50 ships, hand-picked from across the central systems, war-tested, crewed by veterans, and armed with advanced siege weaponry. At its head, Admiral Trevel, a tactician known for extinguishing rebellions before they could draw breath. His orders were absolute: subdue Earth, demonstrate superiority, extract leaders, and end further escalation before the humans gain momentum. The fleet's arrival was unannounced. It dropped out of fold space beyond the orbit of Neptune, cloaked, scanning silently. Standard procedure dictated orbital surveillance and planet-wide disruption before any ground interaction. What they found defied expectations. Earth was not passive. The system had been transformed into a layered battlefield. Outer orbital space was littered with debris fields, deliberately arranged to mask movement. Automated weapons platforms tracked the fleet within minutes. Long-range jamming began almost instantly, not targeting communications, but internal diagnostic systems, scrambling sensor arrays and overloading maintenance routines. Before the Empire's ships could even orient, they were under fire. High-velocity projectiles, dumb, kinetic, untraceable, struck with pinpoint precision. Dozens of autonomous drones accelerated from hidden orbits, swarming the outer perimeter like insects. The first loss came within 90 seconds. A cruiser, hull breached, engines ruptured. The crew had no time to return fire. Human vessels emerged not from planetary bases, but from deep asteroid holds and cloaked orbital factories. Each one bore a different design, many seemingly retrofitted civilian crafts turned into engines of war. Their asymmetry confused the Empire's targeting systems. Energy signatures were masked, propulsion irregular. But they moved fast. Too fast. Admiral Trevel ordered a counterstrike. He directed destroyers to engage the nearest targets. The weapons locked on, and then shut down. Internal systems failed as an unseen virus spread through the fleet's shared network. Within minutes, 5 ships were blind, helpless, floating targets. Human missiles tore through them with terrifying accuracy. No demand for surrender. No message. No face. Only violence, executed with mechanical precision. Then came the boarding parties. Human strike units launched in self-propelled pods, bypassing shields entirely. Each pod carried a team of 6 to 10 soldiers, encased in armor that registered no life signs, their movements augmented, expressions unreadable. They breached hulls with shaped charges, flooding corridors with smoke, flash bursts, and electromagnetic pulses. They fought in total silence. No calls. No signals. Their goal was not domination, it was erasure. Empire soldiers, bred for formation tactics and command structures, were overwhelmed. The humans fought like independent nodes, fluid, reactive, lethal. They used weapons that required no reloading, deployed micro-drones mid-battle, and converted the environment into a weapon. One group turned an engineering bay into a plasma trap. Another lured defenders into an airlock, vented the chamber, and advanced into the vacuum without pause. By the second hour, 17 Empire ships had been lost. The remaining vessels attempted retreat. Their fold space drives refused to initialize. Sabotaged. Whether by code or device, no one could say. They were stranded. From Earth, a signal was finally received. Not from a government, not from a diplomat, but from an AI construct mimicking the voice of a child. "This is your fault," it said. Then the signal ended, and orbital bombardment began. The Empire's surviving fleet commanders watched as kinetic rods, simple metal bars accelerated to orbital speeds, rained down on their formation. Shields designed to absorb energy weapons collapsed under the raw force. Armor plates buckled. Ships split open. The Empire's elite force, trained to face planetary resistance, had been outmaneuvered and dismantled before they could fire a full salvo. Groundside, Earth remained untouched. No cities burned. No monuments fell. Their population went on, almost unaffected, while the most powerful military force in the galaxy was annihilated above their skies. It wasn't rage. It wasn't vengeance. It was dissection. By the fourth hour, the last functioning Empire vessel sent out a beacon. Not a call for reinforcements, but a warning. Do not come here. The message reached the nearest command post 12 light hours away. Analysis confirmed what few believed possible. Earth had prepared for this war long before contact. Their militarization was covert, scattered, hidden in plain sight. No centralized defense. No single point of failure. It was not an army. It was a distributed war machine. Reverse engineering of captured alien tech had begun almost instantly, improving their systems by orders of magnitude within weeks. Adaptive AI networks stitched together lessons from each encounter. Losses were integrated into new tactics. Mistakes were impossible to repeat. Every failed strike refined their efficiency. They didn't build monuments to the fallen. They didn't pause for diplomacy. The destruction of the Empire's Second Fleet was not revenge, it was a test. A demonstration of capability. One Empire survivor, retrieved months later from a deep space capsule, spoke only one sentence before dying from neural shock. They enjoyed it. Analysts tried to rationalize the defeat. They cited technological parity, cyber warfare breakthroughs, and the unpredictability of asymmetric tactics. But beneath the data was a colder truth. Humanity did not view war as tragedy. To them, it was a challenge. A language. A puzzle to be solved. And they were fast learners. Across the Outer Rim, whispers spread. Small governments once loyal to the Empire began locking down trade routes. Independent systems refused military assistance. Merchant fleets altered paths to avoid Seoul by entire sectors. The loss was not just military. It was psychological. The myth of Empire invincibility, once unshakable, had fractured. And in that fracture, something far more terrifying was born, a new understanding. Humanity had no interest in survival. They were built to win. The Empire's high command met in absolute secrecy, beneath layers of hardened shielding, in the core systems where war had not touched for millennia. The defeat at Earth was no longer classified, it had become undeniable. 50 elite warships lost, with no measurable human casualties, no captured prisoners, and no diplomatic channels opened. It was a message, not just to the Empire, but to the galaxy. And everyone was listening. The Council could no longer ignore the human threat. Their silence, their methods, their lack of pattern, it shattered every conventional doctrine. Empires thrived on predictability. Conquest followed formula. But humanity didn't follow the rules. They dismantled them. Every Empire projection model failed within days of contact. The simulations showed one conclusion: escalation would only lead to annihilation. Still, pride and fear clashed behind closed doors. Some demanded immediate retaliation, a show of dominance through full-scale system collapse. Others warned of deeper losses, of unknown capabilities. The debate ended when the archive breach occurred. The Empire's central databanks, buried beneath unbreachable firewalls, suffered an intrusion. No damage. No theft. Just a message, buried deep within ancient code repositories, triggered by a routine system update. Stop sending ships. We won't ask again. The Empire had never been issued terms. It had never been given ultimatums. Now it faced one written in its own systems, delivered without trace, time-stamped milliseconds after the last fleet's destruction. Panic rippled through the inner systems. Peripheral colonies began fortifying their borders. Merchant alliances rerouted all traffic away from human-occupied vectors. Private militaries declined Empire contracts. Even the largest corporations, once embedded in the Empire's economic engine, suspended operations in any sectors remotely connected to Earth. And then the disappearances began. Empire listening posts stationed near neutral zones fell silent. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Just gone, entire installations missing from space, with no debris, no energy trails, no warnings. Patrols sent to investigate either vanished or returned without memory of what they'd seen. Human stealth capabilities had reached levels beyond comprehension. By now, Earth had not made any statements. No flags were raised. No ambassadors deployed. The humans refused to participate in the pageantry of galactic politics. They offered no ideology, no demands, no justification. They simply made it clear: further intrusion would not be tolerated. But the Empire could not back down. Not without consequences. To retreat would be to signal weakness. The very fabric of their rule depended on the illusion of control. So they tried infiltration. Undercover agents, genetically engineered to pass among human populations, were deployed to Earth. They were inserted via cloak-drop pods, pre-programmed with false credentials and cultural data scraped from intercepted transmissions. Every single one was neutralized within minutes of landing. Not killed, captured. Footage recovered from a long-range satellite showed the agents in containment facilities, alive but unresponsive. Vital signs stable. Brain activity suppressed. None of them ever regained autonomy. The last data burst from one operative's neural node contained only a single fragment of text. "You are predictable." It became clear then, humanity did not simply win through brute force. They predicted. Modeled. Understood. Not just tactics, but psychology, ideology, the structural weaknesses of an empire built on fear. They had studied the Empire long before first contact. Not as equals, not as rebels, but as predators. The psychological warfare intensified. Empire ships patrolling neutral systems found their navigation systems rerouted mid-flight, quietly, without warning. They would exit fold space light years off course, only to find human probes already there, silent, motionless, as if waiting. No attacks. Just presence. Human-created memes, symbols, and messages began appearing in unrelated sectors. Digital graffiti in abandoned satellites. Repeating phrases like, "We remember," and "You never learned." Harmless on the surface, but it created cracks in morale. Empire officers began reporting paranoia, hallucinations, dreams they could not explain, visions of faceless soldiers in black armor, watching from distant stars. Even civilian sectors began to feel the pressure. Children sang nursery rhymes adapted from intercepted human media. Markets crashed in sectors adjacent to Earth-controlled space. Pilots refused to take cargo jobs near solar-aligned systems. Some entire stations voted for total isolation. No more trade, no more movement. Just distance. Humanity never sent a fleet beyond their system. They didn't need to. Fear did the work for them. The Empire's scientists worked around the clock to decode the human strategy. Theories emerged. One suggested that humans had developed adaptive warriors capable of self-improvement at exponential rates. Another posited that Earth's species-wide trauma history had conditioned them for generational warfare, a cultural mutation that produced civilizations capable of total militarization without centralized control. No theory explained everything. All the Empire knew for certain was that nothing it had built could match what Earth had become. Not technologically. Not psychologically. Not morally. They weren't fighting a species. They were fighting inevitability. Attempts at negotiation were made. Not directly. The Empire sent encrypted messages into human space, disguised as trade offers, cultural exchanges, even apologies. No response ever came. Instead, each message was echoed back days later, altered, not with threats, but corrections. Their grammar fixed. Syntax optimized. Tone adjusted. As if to say, "We understood you. We chose not to reply." One by one, the Council's remaining hardliners began to fall silent. Not because of votes or political maneuvering, but because they, too, had begun to see the pattern. Earth didn't want war. They had simply accepted it as their baseline. While other species pursued stability and order, humans evolved in chaos. It was not an affliction. It was their natural state. And in that chaos, they found clarity. The Empire had no response. No path forward. No battlefield left. Their ships were obsolete. Their strategies outdated. Their dominance a memory. All that remained was fear. And Earth didn't even have to lift a finger to maintain it. The first human fleet finally left their solar system not with ceremony, but with purpose. No declarations. No spectacle. Just a precise, coordinated departure of warships, sleek, dark, angular in ways that bent sensor logic. Their trajectories weren't random. They moved like scalpel blades aimed at the Empire's most secure installations, research stations, and command hubs far beyond Sol. They didn't need supply lines. They didn't slow. Each ship was autonomous, running off self-contained power systems the Empire couldn't reverse engineer. Intercept attempts failed. Empire scouts reported contact seconds before being erased. Entire sensor nets went blind moments before arrival. The fleets didn't engage in orbital displays or intimidation runs. They bypassed planetary defenses completely and struck only the intended target, down to the meter, with zero collateral damage. Each hit was surgical. Each attack sent a message. The first target was a weapons lab orbiting the gas giant Alvarez III, known for developing directed energy weapons. It was removed from existence in under 4 seconds. No debris. No survivors. Next was a tactical AI hub housed within a fortress moon in the Zarek Belt. The AI, considered incorruptible, transmitted a surrender signal before impact. The moon shattered anyway. Earth didn't take prisoners. It didn't pause to accept apologies. No one had ever seen warfare executed like this. Not through dominance. Not through brute force. But with cold, exact calculation. No taunting. No messages of glory. Humanity never announced their arrival. They simply arrived, erased the threat, and left. Empire Command attempted to adapt. Fleets were split into mobile groups, hidden in uninhabited systems. It didn't matter. Human ships always found them. Defensive grids were redesigned. Software overhauled. Firewalls hardened. None of it slowed them. Empire tacticians tried to emulate human unpredictability and failed. They missed the core truth: this wasn't improvisation. This was design. A design honed from centuries of internal warfare, forged in the crucible of survival, now unleashed without restraint. As the Empire retreated further, internal fractures surfaced. Systems that once pledged loyalty began isolating themselves. Governors ignored council directives. Former allies erased evidence of cooperation. Broadcasts of support for the Empire stopped overnight, replaced by declarations of neutrality. Everyone understood now: proximity to the old regime was a liability. Meanwhile, the human fleets advanced without politics, without flag-waving, without mercy. They dismantled the Empire's infrastructure with chilling efficiency. They didn't occupy. They didn't enslave. They simply removed what didn't belong. Some systems, when contacted, offered unconditional surrender. Humanity responded the same way each time, with silence. There was no negotiation. No offer of peace. The absence of conquest terrified leaders more than war. It meant the humans weren't seeking control. They were cleansing. Purging the infection the Empire had spread across the stars. Rumors spread faster than ships. Stories of entire worlds spared after denouncing the Empire. Sectors untouched because their people had resisted in some forgotten age. These rumors became law. Systems began broadcasting old rebellions, resurfacing histories the Empire had erased, hoping it would buy them safety. Some tried to fake resistance legacies, crafting digital records to appear sympathetic. None of those systems survived. Humans had records of their own. They remembered everything. The psychological toll devastated the Empire's remaining command. Admirals deserted. Generals staged disappearances. Councils disbanded. The center collapsed while the edges burned. Propaganda no longer functioned. Even children knew the truth. The Empire had made a mistake that could never be undone. At the heart of it all, no human face ever spoke to the galaxy. Their ships bore no names. Their voices were absent. It made them myth, and myth was stronger than any banner. Even the word Earth became sacred in its danger. Maps stopped labeling soul. No records were shared. No charts marked their path. Eventually, the last remnants of the Empire withdrew to the deep core, uncharted systems long thought uninhabitable. Their final hope was obscurity. Survival through irrelevance. They dismantled communication systems, erased network traces, shut down beacon signals. Total silence. But humanity had already mapped them. When the first human probe entered the deep core, it didn't announce itself. It didn't scan. It didn't transmit. It simply existed, visible only when it wanted to be. It drifted silently, recording. The Empire watched helplessly, knowing that once again, they had been found. Then, for the first time since the war began, a message arrived. Human language. Clear. Uncoded. We told you not to come. No threat followed. No conditions. That was the threat. And then, nothing more. The probe left, vanishing as abruptly as it had appeared. The Empire's surviving officials didn't sleep. They didn't strategize. They didn't retaliate. They simply waited. Weeks passed. Then months. No attack came. The humans had made their point. The message was simple: survival was granted, not earned. Obedience wasn't demanded. Relevance wasn't acknowledged. The Empire no longer mattered. The galaxy's balance had shifted. It wasn't about dominance anymore. It was about not being noticed. The fall of the Empire was not marked by a final battle or the raising of foreign banners. It ended in silence, its authority crumbling from the core outward. Systems once tethered by military rule or economic dependency severed ties, not in defiance, but in quiet preservation. Rulers who had once enforced the Empire's will now erase its insignias from their walls. No declarations were made. They simply stopped acknowledging the regime, as if it had never existed. Humanity did not claim credit. No celebrations followed. Their fleets did not linger in conquered systems. After each precise dismantling, they vanished, leaving behind scorched voids and terrified silence. There was no annexation, no tribute demanded, no ideological replacement for the Empire's doctrine. The absence was absolute. Entire planetary governments collapsed not from fire or force, but from the unbearable weight of being ignored. This was not chaos. It was precision. Every Empire asset had been catalogued, mapped, judged, and where necessary erased. The humans had catalogued guilt and loyalty, choosing targets with an understanding of galactic history that surpassed the Empire's own archives. They didn't destroy indiscriminately. They removed with intention. With the Empire gone, power vacuums emerged across hundreds of sectors. Opportunists tried to rise. Coalitions formed in back channels, believing they could inherit control. But the new era wasn't defined by conquest, it was dominated by uncertainty. Everyone had seen the consequences of ambition. No one wanted to be noticed. The most successful systems were the quiet ones, cooperative, neutral, hidden. Their leaders stopped asking what Earth wanted. They only wondered how to stay irrelevant enough to be left alone. Human activity faded from open space. Their fleets stopped appearing. Probes vanished. Even surveillance signatures dropped to near zero. The galaxy, shaken and paranoid, could only assume this was not retreat, it was observation. Humanity had proven it could strike anywhere, at any time, with nothing but intent. The fear remained not because humans were everywhere, but because they could be anywhere. Trade routes adjusted accordingly. New hyperspace corridors were charted with care, avoiding Sol by dozens of sectors. The region surrounding Earth became an unspoken dead zone. Not blockaded, just untouched. The galaxy moved around it like prey circling a sleeping predator, terrified of waking it. Scholars tried to analyze the strategy. Think tanks across the remnants of civilized space compiled behavioral studies, linguistic data, cultural deconstructions. None provided actionable insight. The same conclusion surfaced over and over. Humanity's motivations defied extrapolation. They hadn't sought revenge. They hadn't enforced dominance. They hadn't even secured resources. They had eliminated a problem. One by one, old enemies of the Empire stepped forward, cautious and quiet, attempting to speak to Earth, some seeking alliance, others repentance. None were acknowledged. Those who tried too hard simply disappeared. The lesson spread, attention was a risk. A strange peace settled across the stars. Not from unity, but from shared caution. Borders stabilized. Fleets shrank. Militias disbanded. Worlds once obsessed with militarization began focusing inward: agriculture, infrastructure, defense. No one wanted to give humanity a reason to return. The shadow of annihilation became the great equalizer. The very idea of war transformed. Academies stopped teaching traditional strategy. Diplomats became more important than generals. Proxy conflicts dissolved. Entire systems rewrote their constitutions to emphasize non-aggression. Militaries were no longer tools of power, but insurance against the possibility, however remote, of human contact. Even language changed. In the outer sectors, to be seen by Sol became an idiom for self-destruction. Don't wake Earth was engraved on starport walls. Children were taught history not through glory or conquest, but through silence and survival. Still, no one forgot what had happened. Every destroyed fleet. Every erased stronghold. Every unspoken warning. The survivors passed down stories not of heroism, but of restraint. Entire generations grew up learning that the most dangerous species in the galaxy had never made a demand, issued a claim, or sought to expand. They had simply acted when provoked, and then vanished. In time, researchers began noticing something strange in distant systems. Isolated colonies reported sudden surges in technological development, power grids stabilizing, crop yields increasing, software systems self-correcting without intervention. These advancements weren't accompanied by explanation. They were simply there. As if humanity had left tools behind, not as gifts, but as adjustments. Corrections to what they considered broken. No one spoke of it openly. But in private, leaders understood Earth had not vanished. It was watching. Correcting. Not ruling, but guiding from a distance, in a manner none could challenge or even question. Eventually, the Council was reformed, not as the ruling body of an empire, but as a neutral mediation collective. Its new charter forbid expansion. Its fleet was dismantled. Members were required to submit full transparency logs and commit to long-term de-escalation protocols. No one protested. Everyone signed. The alternative was unthinkable. In hushed tones, people referred to Earth as a myth, a god, a ghost. In classrooms, it became a symbol not of terror, but of consequence. Children were taught that power used unwisely would bring attention, and attention brought end. And so, the galaxy changed. Not through force. Not through conquest. But through a single, undeniable truth. Humanity did not seek control. They were the consequence.